Welcome to Exegetical Tools Basic Greek videos. In this video we're going to look at the future passive indicative. So hopefully by this point you've already watched the future active and the future middle indicative. And you'll probably want to watch the aorist passive video as well, because what you can already see right here is that this the tense stem used is going to be the aorist passive stem, so it's going to help you to go ahead and watch the aorist passive video first before you watch this. So the future passive indicative, obviously the translation is just going to be something like I will be loosed or he will be loosed. That's what we're talking about. And again, the future tense stem has likely no aspect to it. It just simply refers to future time. And there are four constituent parts that you need to look at. There's, first of all, the aorist passive tense stem, which again for luo is just lu, but we'll see down below an example of a tense stem that looks different from the present active indicative. So luo just has lu. And then the tense formative is thais. And so what this is, since it borrows the aorist passive tense stem, it's basically borrowing also the aorist passive tense formative, which is theta eta, and then it's just adding a sigma to it. Just like the future tense adds a sigma to the present active indicative, where you have luo, and then to get the future, you add a sigma in there, sigma tense formative. It's the very same thing here, except now it's building off the aorist passive. And remember that the aorist passive is the sixth principal part among the principal parts. So if you were to look up a principal part sheet, or if you go to the back of a grammar where it's going to list the principal parts, you'll find six different forms, and then the sixth one will be the aorist passive form. So if you need to figure out what's the stem of a future passive verb, then you would need to find the sixth principal part of that verb, get the stem from that sixth principal part, and then derive it from there. Now, let's see, we've got the tense form of thais, and then we have the connecting vowel. It's going to be omicron, or it's going to be the epsilon. It's the variable connecting vowel. And then we're going to have the primary middle passive personal endings. So obviously it's the passive indicative, so it's going to have the passive personal endings. And that's the mai, sai, tai, methus, they, ontai, because it's the primary, not the secondary endings. And remember, it's the present tense stem and the future tense stem that use the primary endings, especially. So now a couple things just to keep in mind. Already mentioned this first bullet point. The second bullet point is that because you have thais, there is going to be one other form that's going to be that might confuse you, and that's forms that end in thaison, because thais is in there, theta, eta, sigma. But then it's got the alpha connecting vowel, and then the nu ending for the third person plural of the secondary active endings. So that would be the aorist passive indicative third person plural, something like luthason. So this could accidentally look like the future passive, but you know it's not, because the future passive requires an omicron epsilon variable connecting vowel. And you can't have nu for an ending either, because you use the mai, sai, tai, methus, they, ontai endings. So just be aware of that. That's one form where you're going to see the thais, but it's not going to be future passive. Now let's look at the actual paradigm. In the paradigm, we have the stem here. We have the thais tense formative all the way down, the variable connecting vowel, the endings, as we said. Remember, the second person singular will contract to a with the iota subscript, and then you have the final forms here. So the final forms being luthaesomai, luthaese, luthaesetai, luthaesomatha. Actually, I believe the accent should go right there. That looks like a typo. Luthaesomatha, luthaesitha, that one's tough, and luthaethontai. So Actually, I'm going to pause the video 1 second and check, make sure that accent is correct. Okay, yes, so I was correct. This accent was incorrect. The accent should not be there because ametha, those are the last 3 syllables, and you have to have the accent on one of the last 3 syllables. So it'd be luthe samatha. So the accent goes here over the omicron. Make sure you get that right for the when you write this out. So those are the 6 forms, some of them difficult to say, so practice saying them aloud, although really if you just get the constituent parts down, you understand the 4 different parts that make it up, that's going to be the best way to actually remember this form. And then just remember luthesami. That's going to be your principal part, and from there, if you know luthesami like this, then really all you got to do is change the endings, or rather a, like that. My psi, sorry, that should have been psi. My psi tai, and remember this is etai, this is si or a, and you know, all the way down, ametha, that sort of thing. So basically, if you remember this first form, then you can build the rest of the forms as well. Obviously, you have to go through the contractions manually and that sort of thing, but you can work that out. Now, for the translation, as I said earlier, I will be loosed, you will be loosed, he, she, it will be loosed. Very straightforward. And that's the first future passive. Now, I didn't say anything about first or second future passive earlier. So what is this all about? You could just call the second future passive the irregular future passive, but I'm calling them the first and the second. The only difference is that in the second future passive, there is no theta. The theta drops out. And that drops out because certain verbs have different stems, and those stems do not want a theta on the end of them. So one verb, one example is apostello. Apostello, which is right here in the present active indicative. So the present tense stem would be apostel with 2 lambdas. But when you put it in the aorist passive, the stem you get is apostal, like that, with 1 lambda and an alpha instead of an epsilon. Now, to the end of that, it does not want apostalthesomai. It just wants apostolesomai. And for that reason, the tense formative is not going to have the theta. It's just going to have the eta sigma. And then it's still going to have the omicron epsilon connecting vowels and the same endings. So the only difference is the different stem, which will still be the aorist passive stem, but it just drops the theta. So if you look at these final forms, apostolesomai, apostolese, etc., it translates the same. So there's no difference in translation or anything like that. It's just that some verbs drop the theta, that's all. And I'm calling those the second future passive. That you could just call them irregular, however you want to call them. But that's it. So remember that. Remember, this is building off the 6th principal part, which is the aorist passive. It's using the aorist passive tense stem. It's using the these tense formative, which is very familiar, very easy to spot. Don't confuse it with theson, which is the aorist passive 3rd person plural ending of the active indicative, and you should be good to go. So that's it, the future passive indicative.